Hello everyone and welcome to a very nice game. It is a rest day in the Candidates Tournament, and this game is not played by one of the candidates. It is in fact a game between Anish, Giri and world champion Magnus Carlsen, and it was not played in the venue where the Candidates Tournament is played. Was actually played in a bar. Here you have a nice photo of the two of them playing. It's a very cool game, very cool opening. A lot of things happen, and you probably have seen in the thumbnail what happens, but it's just amazing how that position even gets on the board. And also, if you are perhaps one of the people that are watching them play through the glass, do mention in the comments. That would be very cool. Now getting back to the game, Anish has the white pieces and he opens with e4. We have knight to c6 by Magnus, going for the Nimzovich defense, knight to f3, d6, and now Anish grabs the full center with the d4. We have knight to f6 now, going after the e4 pawn by Magnus, and knight to c3. We have g6 preparing to fianchetto the dark square bishop, bishop to e2, bishop to g7, and both players castle. And now we have d5 attacking the knight, and Magnus just goes back. Not knight to e5, but rather knight to b8. And now he's going to undermine Giri's strong center with a move like c6. So here we have h3, preventing bishop to g4, and now pawn to a6. Interestingly, this position occurs quite a lot as people do play this, but c6 is the move that everyone plays. But here Magnus plays a6, and it is a move that has only been played once before. We have a4, pawn to b6, and now a rook to e1. There is one game where bishop to e3 was played, but here Anish plays rook to e1, and it is now as of move 10 that we have a completely new game. So Magnus goes bishop to b7, and now bishop to g5. We have c6, finally challenging the center, and queen to d2 now, preparing bishop to h6 to trade off the dark square bishops. We have knight b to d7 by Magnus, and now bishop to f1. C captures on d5, E captures on d5, and Magnus brings the rook into the game. Rook to c8 and the bishop back to e3. And this is a very interesting thing about this game, is that how many moves Anish does with this bishop. So now bishop back to e3, and Magnus could consider even an exchange sacrifice with rook captures on c3 to weaken the d5 pawn, and after queen captures, knight captures on c3 opens up this diagonal. So black would definitely have more than enough compensation for this, but he keeps the tension, plays rook to e8, and now bishop to d4 by Anish, another move with the dark square bishop. We have rook to c7, now preparing to move the queen all the way to a8, put pressure on the d5 pawn, and this rook is then coming to c8. So rook 8 to d1, and now queen to a8. We have king to h1, and now Magnus plays bishop to f8. And when Magnus makes a move like this, it definitely feels like it is the beginning of the end. The pawn is now protected, so you don't have to worry, and the other rook is coming to the c file. So bishop to e3, another move with the bishop, and rook e to c8. We have bishop to g5, another move with the bishop, and Magnus goes for rook to c5. Just puts more pressure on this d5 pawn. So bishop back to e3 by Anish, another move with the bishop, attacking the rook here, and now Magnus gives up the exchange to grab that central pawn. So rook captures on c3, b captures, and now not knight captures on d5, but first knight to e4. This is even stronger because the d5 pawn will fall, and this way you get another pawn and some extra cool moves. So queen to d4 now, attacking the knight, knight captures on c3, attacks the rook, rook to d3 by Anish, and now knight captures on d5, attacking the bishop here, and now another move with the bishop to g5. Now rook captures on c2 by Magnus, and rook to d2, offering a trade of bishops, rook to c5, trade of rooks, rook to c5. Magnus declines this, and now knight to h2. Now Anish wants to set up some sort of a kingside attack, bring the queen into the game, put the knight on g4, have access to the h6 square, bishop to g7, and now queen to h4 by Anish, shifting all of the pieces into the attack. Bishop to c3 now, attacking the rooks. There was no really a good way to avoid this, and it's questionable if Magnus should even do this. It's a blitz game, and this is your dragon. You already sacrificed material. You maybe don't want to do something like this. But okay, knight to g4, and Magnus goes for the rook. Bishop captures on d2, and bishop captures on d2. Okay, another move with the bishop, but this one is a recapture. here, and now h5. As knight to h6 check was coming, so this way you at least give your king some squares. Knight to h6 check, king to g7, and now comes rook captures on e7. And here, interesting about the position is that Anish has 14 seconds on the clock, and Magnus has some 30 seconds on the clock, but the position is completely winning for black. It's an incredibly cool position, so feel free to pause the video here and try to find the absolute best move for Magnus while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on not recapturing right away. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is knight to e5. This wins the game, and there is nothing you can do now. The problem is you can't really play something like, let's say, queen here, because rook captures on f7 and it's game over. You get checkmated. So you have to play not this, but knight to e5. And now, not only are you defending the f7 pawn, but there's no good move here. Now queen to d8 will be a huge threat. And even if f4 attacking the knight, we still play queen to d8. And now the great thing about having this knight on e5 is that you don't have to worry about rook captures with check and blundering your queen, because after knight captures, the knight also defends the queen. So knight to e5, just an incredibly strong move in this position, but of course 30 seconds on the clock. Magnus just picks up the rook, knight captures on e7, and now queen captures by Anish, going after the f7 pawn, and now comes knight to e5, defending the f7 pawn like this. But I will just show for your amusement the queen to f8 line, because it's just awesome. You sacrifice a knight here, and after the queen captures, now you attack the queen again. All of these squares are taken, so you don't really have that. The only square is queen to a7, and now you play rook to d5, go after the bishop, and now what do you play? Not all that much you can do. If you move the bishop away from the defense of the knight, we're just gonna pick up the knight. If you play something like c1, then even the rook to d1 is coming with an attack on both bishops. So best is just to play knight captures on f7, queen captures, and now bishop to c3 check, going after the black king. King to f8, now we trade, queen captures, king captures, and now bishop to c4. This is how white remains in the game, although it's well, who would see this? Even in a long game, this would be okay. This would be, of course, played in a long game, but it is just very nice. King to e6. Now bishop to d4. We have b5 captures, and after bishop to b3, king to f5. Now basically forcing white to capture. Bishop captures, and you get this position where black is up a pawn, bishops of opposite colors, and the b pawn is marching forward. It's a pass pawn. With the white king being so far away, this will be winning for black. But you know, it's one big long line that is possible, but only for your enjoyment. This is blitz game, so of course players will not spot such moves. Knight to e5 was played, and now pawn to f4. Now this is much different. Magnus does play queen to f8. And Anish just captures the bishop here, because you have to, you know, add the defender to the f7 pawn. The knight cannot move. So queen captures on b7. Now comes knight to c6 and pawn to f5. Anish continues the attack. The knight now again nicely defended. We have queen to e7, offering a queen trade, and queen captures on b6. Now Anish still playing for the win, even though he's lower on time. And here Magnus plays g5. And now, how do you continue? Well, Anish played pawn to h4, or no, Anish played queen to b2 with check. Yeah, queen to b2 with check is a very, very strong move, but h4 is also playable. The point is, after h4, you can't capture the knight here. That's a very nice thing. So you would have to play something like g4, and then the knight is protected. So there's that, because of course if you capture, bishop captures, just blunders the queen. But okay, in the game, queen to b2 check was played. Now comes knight to e5 by Magnus, and the position is now completely winning for Anish. Here, instead of this, you have to play queen to e5. You go for a queen trade, and Magnus is still just better. But after this knight to e5 move, Magnus is dead lost. But again, it's so beautiful that you will have to pause the video one more time and find the win for Anish while I give you a couple of seconds. So, for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this incredible checkmate with the king on h6. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is queen to b8. That's the movie that ends the game. The move that ends the game. And now the point is, of course, if you capture the knight, then queen to h8 is checkmate right away. The pawn prevents the king from going to g6. And if you don't do this, how are you preventing queen to g8 check? This will force the capture, and then again queen to h8 will be checkmate. So there are a couple of things you could do. You could play queen to f8, but that's not gonna be all that great because f6 check, you have to move away from the defense of the queen, and it's game over. We pick up the queen, and now you get checkmated. So the only thing left for you to do after this beautiful queen to b8 move is play knight to g6, which is ugly in itself. F captures on g6, king captures on h6, and now g captures on f7, preparing to bring another queen into the game. So queen captures, but now queen to h8 with check, and now you can see that you are just getting destroyed. King to g6, bishop d3 with check, and now the bishop pair from hell will do their bidding. A rook to f5 you have to block because the king has no squares, and now queen to d8 will be sufficient. We're going after the g5 pawn because the rook is pinned, and once you unpin, now bishop to c3 check again. No more squares, so we're going to play rook to f6, and now even bishop to c4, a nice finishing move. There's just nothing you can play. Queen to f8, you're going to play queen captures, king captures, and now of course this, and the bishop pair remains. Black has no material. So queen to b8, a spectacular move for Anish, but he misses it. He plays pawn to h4 now. That's why I thought he played h4 in that position. I know h4 was played at some point, and now Magnus plays f6. This move saves Magnus, and now he holds the position. H captures, we have F captures, and now Anish plays queen to b8, but now it's not as strong because there is no pawn on f7, which means the black king gets an extra square to escape to. So okay, here queen to f6 by Magnus, and this is just a weird move to make, allowing this queen to g8 move. After queen to f8, the game just continues. Queen to f8, now you can trade, for example, captures. Okay, you will still have to waste a few moves to go after that knight, but let's say bishop captures on a6. Anish creates a pass pawn, and he starts pushing it. The bishop pair will be escorting it. It's going to be a hard pawn to stop. But here we have queen to f6 by Magnus, and he misses a brutal checkmate that Anish spots. Anish plays queen to g8 with check, and it was in this position on move 42 that Magnus Carlsen resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So what did Magnus miss here? Well, he missed that after king captures on h6, of course he doesn't have queen to h8, but he missed that Anish would have bishop captures on g5, leaving Carlsen's king without a single square. The only move left is to capture the bishop, but if you capture the bishop, you no longer have control over the h8 square, so basically we get the checkmate that we are trying to achieve the entire game. Queen to h8 will be checkmate, as the pawn covers the g6 square. So incredible stuff. Magnus missed it. After queen to g8, he resigns, and what an incredible game by both of them, but Anish takes the win. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. A little bit of a breather between the games of the Candidates Tournament. We might show a few more games from this Blitz event, and there are some other games that were played between some guests, so we might show that. But then we are of course tomorrow returning with the Candidates Tournament. If you have any of your own favorite games from this event, do share in the comment section, and I will do my best to cover them. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Once again, you can check out the venue here. Very nicely done. I would like to thank Alan Chevalier Moore, Obran Mishkovich, Jeffrey Cook, Abhishek Babuy, and Gregory Thomas for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the candidates until it finishes. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.